Hello, Sayen. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Getting you?
I'm doing quite fine, and thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Sayen, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, I want to say thank you so very much, Sayen, for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invested in yourself. And oftentimes, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside sign, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I used the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves never hold dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Cyan, just recently I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. And immediately, Cyan, I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. And not just mangoes now, Zion. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day, and I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Zion that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your philosophies, your insight, your work, the impact your work is having, Zion, and how you are offering your solutions. These stuff's so beautiful. So I've got to say thank you for doing that yourself. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, Zion.
No problem. It's my honor to be here.
Beautiful. So let's get right into it. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today, Zion, for a few reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Zion, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge alone, but the application of it. And you see, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Cyan on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of informations flying out there. So those folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Sign, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how science got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Cyan, over to you.
I grew up in South Carolina, and like a lot of people, I spent much of my life being who I thought I needed to be for everyone else. I have a background where my mother was, both my mother and father were Christian, and my father was apostolic, and my mother was Baptist. So that was a different dynamic and different ways of walking with Christ. So that made it a lot different for me to be able to like see different perspectives, which is what helped me develop the need of looking at different perspectives. I was always the person people could count on and the person helping others, but I wasn't always taking the time to understand what was going on within myself. So my background is in healthcare, which I was a phlebotomist for 8 years, 8 wonderful years. I later became a community-based doula. Through that work, I had the privilege of supporting people through some of their most vulnerable moments in their lives. And what I started noticing was healing isn't just physical. So much of the people carry is emotional, mental, and even spiritual. At the same time, I was going through my own journey where I had to not only find myself, but to figure out the answer to a question that a church mate of my father's church gave me. He was like, see, now that you're out in the world and you're an adult, he was like, you're going to have to choose who you'll serve. So, and I was trying to figure that thing out because that's a weird question to ask someone that's just now bought their freedom by having an apartment and going to college. Because the first thing you probably think for a college kid is like, we're going to go out drinking. We're going to go out partying. I was not that college kid. I was a nerd. I would stay home, play video games, and not care about what's going on the outside. And if I was outside, I was either biking or I was roller skating. So it's like I had a sense of the person that I was, but when I had to grow up, I already felt the restrictions of the expectation of those around me. At the same time, I started to recognize patterns in my life, certain fears, triggers, and beliefs that kept showing up, which also helped me realize that the religion itself was not for me, but the spiritual side was, because I always known that I was a free spirit that loved to be able to roam and free and be able to help others without restrictions. So I realized that there were parts of myself that I had pushed aside because I didn't think that they were accepted or even worthy to be seen. Like some people say that your wounds are the roadmaps to knowing who a person is. So my wound was an abandonment wound, where it's like I felt that even no matter how hard I screamed, no matter how many times I kept saying see me," no one actually knew what that meant. They just
Mm,
say the great job and then you're done. But it was more to that. Because one thing that people knew was my father was a truck driver. My mom, she worked a job, very fruitful, but it was like I was literally by myself all the time. But when I grew up, so I was used to being solo dolo. But by the time I grew up in my 20s and I knew exactly what I wanted to do, I felt like there was more of a calling to do more when I got into medical. So I noticed that my attentive listening and my intensive knowing started to shift around that time, which in turn gave me the opportunity to be able to learn what shadow work was. So the more that I explored those parts of myself, the more I understood that healing wasn't fixing who I was. It was about understanding who I was.
mm,
And it also pertains to like learning to pick up the pieces that you left behind for the perfection of the world. So that's what led me to be to shadow work. Shadow work gave me a language and tools that to look at the parts of myself I had ignored or judged or hidden. And instead of running from them, I just learned how to sit with them, learn from them, and then integrate them in my life and understand and how to actually look at those patterns and look at those triggers and look at those signs and be able to know if this is the little girl from a while ago or this is Sayen, the person that's been walking this journey the whole time and still in process of healing. So instead of running from them, I decided to become a shadow work coach and host my podcast Shadow Corner, where you could literally listen to like parts of my life that was very traumatic or parts of my life that made me question who I was. And with that podcast, I help others do the same. I create space where people can be honest about their experiences and explore their stories they've been carrying and begin healing without a shame. So what I've learned is that transformation doesn't always come from forcing yourself to change. It comes from getting curious about yourself and showing yourself compassion and being able to be willing to have the conversations that you've been avoiding without the heavy elephant stress. And that's the journey that brought me here and the journey now that I help people navigate through.
Hmm. Amazing. And you did said something very profound. You said healing wasn't fixing who I was, but understanding who I was. I got
Hmm.
that. I got that. So, I'm still a bit curious about shadow work. So what does shadow work actually involve?
When they think of shadow work, they think of oogie boogies,
Mm,
and especially those of like Christian faith. They think that this is devil work and this is something that we shouldn't be doing, but it's literally the same thing when you have to convict yourself to prayer and do fasting and praying. It's just another way of doing it without that type of pressure. Because originally, just like shadow work was originally brought to light by I believe he was either Russian or I know he was foreign, a scientist, psychologist by the name of Carl Jung. He believed that the shadow is part of us that we either repress, deny, or we taught or was taught to be unacceptable, and not just dark traits. It can also be hidden gifts, powers, or sensibilities, voices, or even leadership that have taught us that this side of ourselves won't help us get anywhere. But now we're living in a day and age now where these people end up using those shadow parts of themselves to make room for them because it's part of their gift. For the people that's like completely bluntly honest, that's their superpower. And they don't know that it is, but I do say execution will always reign supreme. So if you are that person that's just blunt and just puts it out, delivery does help you push it out better, but you live how you choose. But there are signs when you know that when you're doing shadow work, that you understand that you've gotten to the healing process. So let's do the signs that where you know that you are running the show. Overreacting to certain when your shadow's running the show, sometimes overreacting to certain people. If you already know the playbook of their type of person, it shouldn't make you react anymore. But we still fall into that trap because we're thinking that this person is different. So we don't think that they'll come from that same playbook. But just like my dad used to say, just because the players have changed doesn't mean the game has. So being able to look at them from a different angle, even no matter how fancy they're dressed, you can still point out the people and the more shadow work you have to do, because if you're still reacting to that, then that means that there's something that you missed in the first 3 lessons that spirit has to take you back to get. Another thing is being triggered by specific traits. There's nothing wrong with being able to admire someone's traits or something that they are actually keen to. But what makes it a problem is that you end up trying to emulate those traits even if that's not your gift. And then you probably put yourself in a state of woe when it doesn't work out the way you think it is. That's you trying to figure out whether or not that this is something that you can walk into or you could probably do it better. Those are the type of people that carry those shadows, are the people that they were told that they weren't enough. And then they had to be the best and they had to be better. Another could be repeating toxic patterns. If you see different people, but you keep choosing the same person in a different form, you have to realize that there's something in that person, not in that person per se, but there's something about that person's chronotype that you need to look at. And why is it that you keep repeating the same thing? What lesson did you not learn the first time? And then I would say the last one is like self-sabotage when your success is near. Sometimes we get to that point where we're like, it's too good to be true moments. And then when we decide that maybe this isn't for us and this should be passed on to the next person, that we end up sabotaging something that God has already put in front of us as a way of saying, no, you deserve this. I put this on your table specifically. But if you do not want it, I can always hold it back. That's why they say the package is never not delivered. It's just delayed.
mm.
There's 2 different D's. I hope that answers your question.
I tell you, you see, you're actually sharing some very profound truths, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So, what about this one? What daily habits can help people feel grounded and emotionally balanced?
Okay, so one mini exercise you can do is do an ask me challenge. Basically, it's one of those things where you sit down. If you're a person that likes to meditate, you meditate, and once you're at a good level point for your directive or for yourself, then you start writing down the questions that you're wondering for. I usually prefer someone to do it before they write down the questions before they go into meditation and level out. But some people like to do it while they're meditating. So either way works is fine. You have to ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? If you're having a hard time, you have to figure out where do you feel it, and then go into the I'm a firm believer in chakras because they tell us all about ourselves. Because also in traditional Chinese medicine, it also gives you a diagram of like whatever, when you are affected in more than one meridian point, it does not just affect one organ, it affects the connected organ to it. So it's like you're just like someone can say you're affecting not just your life, but other lives. The same thing applies when it comes to your nervous system, and it also comes to your body itself. You may think that just by not going through the aches, the going through the grief or sitting in the grief is hurting, not just hurting your heart, but you also can be hurting a part of you like your kidneys. They could be connected and they're the ones pushing out whatever it is that you're trying to keep in. Like I said, energy can be put and set in different places of the body. We just have to be able to be conscious enough to listen. But the exercise is where you can ask yourself, where do I feel this today? How am I feeling today? What is something, why why do I keep putting myself in this position? Or you can ask yourself just general questions to be able to get your head on the swivel of how you operate personally if you're just in the beginning of it, because it allows us an opportunity to be able to respond. And I do believe that when we're in that balance and meditative state, or whatever state that seems like it's the most comfortable, we end up bringing up the most honest answers. And it allows us to take like a 60-second breath to be able to acknowledge that this is not something that's against me, it's trying to teach me. And when it comes down to focusing in your meditation, everybody's meditation is not the same. It's not always the generalized where you're sitting down and you're just have your legs closed and you go om, or you say different chants or sutras. Sometimes for some people, meditation could be them listening to their favorite song that's always got them through. Music has always been a medicine to me when I meditate, because the emotion that's applied from the artist as well as the emotion applied in the song, it relates to what I am personally going through. So you can use that as a tool and write down how you're feeling. So your favorite song, why do you like it? What helps why does this specific song help carry you through the day? What is something that you can learn from the lyrics of what the artist is trying to express? These are just literally, to me, they're simple stuff. But for some people, it'll take them time. So I encourage you to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace with it.
Got it. And that was well said. So we have one more to go, Sayan. Let
hmm
us quickly talk about boundaries, okay? So how can one set healthy boundaries without feeling guilty?
Okay. So I hate to tell you, and I'm going to be the one to tell you, boundaries are as fun as you give yourself permission to. And I say that because of the fact that if you are a person that has been a chronic people pleasers, are not, boundaries are what a lot of us struggle with, because we've learned to prioritize being liked, needed, and accepted over being honest with ourselves or honest with the person in front of us. And if it's people that love us and actually care about our growth and their growth as well, then they would want to help you create that space, because even though you're creating a space for yourself to be able to cohabitate and become that one piece, that piece that you need, you're also cohabitating and creating a space with the people around you because they come into your field. We have these certain people that they're the only ones that allow us to be able to be ourselves. And they're able to coexist in and out of our stratosphere all the time. So the same thing applies when you set boundaries. These boundaries are not there as a ball and chain. They're there as a way of learning to respect yourself. And I don't think we've put that together. And shadow work helps us uncover what those patterns come from. And sometimes our difficulty in setting boundaries is rooted in fear of rejection or abandonment, conflict, or disappointment in others. Like it could be as simple as you saying that you would rather be asked than told. That was something that I had to personally learn when it came to boundaries. Because I had friends where they were like, they would tell me to do something instead of asking me. And I would have to when I got sick and tired of it, I put the foot down and I said, hey, I would rather you ask me than tell me because telling me is like you're ordering me. And that means I'm in your will, your way,
Mm,
in your stratosphere and I revolve around you. When in actuality, I'm an individual that's walking this earth just like you, trying to figure out life and trying to do things that help ascend me as well. But by you ordering me to do that, it does not seem like we're going to process that the right way, if that makes any sense.
I
So
tell you.
boundaries, how to set boundaries is as simple as taking a moment, taking a sheet of paper, and I give this exercise to anybody that talks to me about boundaries. What is some things that you know that is your no-goes that you will not tolerate? And then I want you to look at those, those questions or look at those things and say, would you let someone slide in talking to you sideways? No. Okay, cool. Then don't let them do that to you. It's always in respect, but make sure that you understand what boundaries are there for. And some of the common boundary myths are like boundaries are not selfish. They are your way of protecting the peace that you have created. And boundaries are not punishments. It's
Mm,
to let the people in your circle know that you're at a certain point now in your life that you have progressed and you want to be able to continue that harmony without having to shift back into those old modes or those old patterns and toxic traits that you just left behind for your higher self. And boundaries are not about controlling others. They're literally an act of self-respect. Because if you wouldn't treat you bad, why would you treat yourself bad?
yeah. I got it. And that was well said. And I'm going to take that as a final thought, Sayen. So for folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the wonderful stuff you're doing, or maybe they require your services, how can that be possible?
So you can get in contact with me on shadowcornerlifecoaching.com and you can schedule a free consultation with me. That way we can see where your goals are and see where you're trying to head. And then if you're a person that want to just see what you're getting into, I would say listen to my podcast. The first season specifically because it talks about like what I've had to go through. I think the number one episode that I had was the one about overextension and over burnout. And it was me going through the changes of actually building my business, my shadow coaching business, and how exhausted I was and how I overextended myself, not only with my people, my friends and family, but I also overextend myself with my business because I never gave myself time to rest. So it is there's a lot of nuggets in the first and second season. So I encourage you to listen in and just give me your thoughts. I do accept fan mail, so I do see what you write me. So I'd be very appreciative.
Beautiful. So can you repeat your website once more?
www.shadowcornerlifecoaching.com.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's going to be the end of the show, Sayen. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing these things.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful.